Who is it?
Doesn't matter, he'll kill both of us. Promise me something.
Yeah.
Don't follow me.
The movie starts with Dodge sitting in the sleek, futuristic waiting room of Tyra Fund, a company on the brink of financial ruin. As a real estate developer in Detroit, Dodge is grappling with insurmountable debt, exacerbated by a failed investment in the dilapidated Carrington building. Unable to attract tenants or afford renovations, Dodge's financial strain is compounded by his wife Val's pregnancy. Summoned by Chief Miles Sellers, Dodge enters his foreboding office, where Miles proposes a high-stakes game of homicidal hunting. Despite initial shock and reluctance, Dodge succumbs to Miles's persuasive offer, driven by desperation and the allure of wealth. The narrative then shifts to a flashback, revealing how Dodge's descent into the deadly game unfolded. Once a celebrated track star at the University of Michigan, Dodge's life takes a grim turn as he grapples with excruciating headaches and the revelation of terminal brain cancer. Struggling to cope with mounting medical bills and financial woes, Dodge's world collapses when he learns the tumor is inoperable. Desperate and uninsured, Dodge's chance encounter with a nurse leads him to Tyra Fund, where he seeks financial assistance for his dire circumstances. With nowhere else to turn, Dodge's decision to participate in the lethal game becomes a last resort. Back in the present, Miles elucidates the perilous rules of the game, wherein Dodge becomes the hunted. Enduring a 24-hour hunt, Dodge must evade elite hunters intent on his demise. With each hour survived, Dodge earns escalating monetary rewards, culminating in a grand prize of $24.5 million. Bound by strict rules, Dodge cannot halt the game, disclose his participation, or leave the city under threat of perpetual pursuit until his demise. As the stakes escalate, Dodge embarks on a treacherous journey, navigating the ruthless hunters and the looming specter of death in a bid for survival and financial salvation. The hunters are allowed to use any weapons except guns in their pursuit to kill Dodge, a fact that he cannot disclose to anyone as per Miles's instructions. Miles convinces Dodge that even in the event of his death during the game, he could still amass enough money to provide financial security for Val and their unborn child for several years. Desperate and with few options left, Dodge reluctantly agrees to participate, especially after a crucial business investor rejects his proposal to invest in the Carrington building. Under the guise of a run, Dodge rendezvous with Miles at a diner, where the game's logistics are laid out. Dodge's belongings, including his phone, are confiscated, but his medication and an ultrasound image of his child are spared. Equipped with a tracking phone that updates his location to the hunters every hour, Dodge begins his perilous journey as the game commences at sunrise. As Dodge navigates the deadly game, Val grows increasingly concerned as she notices large sums of money deposited into their bank account. Meanwhile, Miles's henchman, Connell, discreetly cleans up crime scenes to maintain the game's secrecy. Val, suspicious of Dodge's whereabouts, seeks answers with the help of Luger, inadvertently drawing attention to themselves in the process. In a tense encounter at a church, Dodge inadvertently attacks a devotee, mistaking him for a hunter. However, the situation escalates when Dodge realizes that the priest, Carter, is actually one of the hunters. A brutal struggle ensues, leaving Dodge injured but managing to confine Carter momentarily. Despite the odds stacked against him, Dodge perseveres, determined to outwit the hunters and survive the deadly game. As the stakes escalate and the hunters close in, Dodge's fight for survival intensifies, leading to a gripping climax where each move could mean the difference between life and death. Outside the church, Connell, Miles's henchman, becomes aware of the situation inside and promptly reports it to his boss. With his leg injuries hindering his mobility, Dodge tends to his wounds and devises a plan to blend in with a crowd of spectators leaving a stadium after a game. Nixon, one of the hunters, spots Dodge among the crowd but loses track of him when Dodge cleverly hides in the trunk of a family's car. Meanwhile, Val grows increasingly anxious as Dodge remains out of contact. Upon discovering a business card from Tyra Fund among Dodge's files, she decides to investigate further. Dodge realizes that the family's car is headed towards Birmingham, which violates the game's rules. He alerts the family and exits the trunk, only to be met with aggression from the husband. Dodge apologizes for the intrusion and flees, stealing a nearby cab to make his way home. As Dodge attempts to return home, he faces another attack, this time from a biker who turns out to be Carter, one of the hunters. In a desperate bid to defend himself and Val, Dodge crashes the cab but manages to eliminate Carter in the ensuing confrontation. Connell is informed of the situation and takes care of Carter's body, updating Miles accordingly. Meanwhile, Val follows the lead from the business card to the supposed location of Tyra Fund, only to find the building empty. Dodge continues to evade his pursuers, with Regan still on his trail. Seeking refuge, Dodge boards a tour ship, but his respite is short-lived when he discovers that the stewardess, Kennedy, is another hunter. In a fierce confrontation, Dodge manages to incapacitate Kennedy by setting her clothes on fire and throwing her into the water before escaping onto a nearby bridge. In the subsequent scene, Dodge encounters a group of thugs who discover his phone showing a bank account balance of $15 million. Despite Dodge's attempts to explain, the thugs, driven by greed, brutally assault him. The situation escalates into a shootout when LBJ, the fifth and final hunter, arrives on the scene. However, one of the injured thugs manages to fatally shoot LBJ, saving Dodge from certain death. Dodge seizes the opportunity to escape, but he is soon pursued by Nixon. Connell arrives at the scene to clean up the aftermath and evade detection by the authorities. Dodge manages to evade the chase and heads to the hospital, where a nurse confirms that his medication is fake and there are no records of his admission. Realizing he's been deceived, Dodge calls Miles, who admits the truth. Dodge doesn't have a terminal illness and was manipulated into accepting the game. Miles reveals that Luger accepted money to drug Dodge and warns that the game's rules still apply. Quickly contacting Val, Dodge reveals the deception and warns her to stay away from Luger. However, Val is soon kidnapped by fake police officers and taken hostage by Miles. Dodge sets traps for the remaining hunters, Nixon, Regan, and Kennedy, in his father's old construction shop. The hunters arrive, and a brawl ensues. Dodge traps Regan's hand, but Kennedy is shot dead by Luger, who arrives unexpectedly. Luger explains that Miles was bluffing about drugging Dodge, and they escape before Dodge blows up the shop, killing Regan. Meanwhile, Nixon escapes when Connell arrives to clean up. Dodge confronts Connell, demanding to know Val's whereabouts. Connell reveals that Miles has set up their base at the Carrington, Dodge's failed high-rise development. Without hesitation, Dodge heads to the Carrington and finds Val tied up inside. Their reunion is interrupted by Nixon, who chases Dodge to the rooftop. In the ensuing fight, Dodge hangs off the building's ledge, with Nixon poised to kill him. However, as the sunrise heralds the end of the 24-hour game, Nixon puts away his weapon and helps Dodge back to safety. Nixon congratulates Dodge on a well-played game before departing. Val reunites with Dodge, and he receives a final call from Miles, confirming his victory and the prize money. Dodge and Val embrace, relieved that the ordeal is finally over. To watch more video like this, click on the videos on your screen, and don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments down below. And at last I will say stay safe and stay healthy. See you next videos.